Welcome to your Passport to Adventure. This is the CrackBerry podcast for Wednesday, September 24th, 2014.
All these years, Adam, and you can still make me laugh. That's kind of funny.
I woke up this morning and I was so excited today to say that on the podcast. I was like, I hope I don't forget it because that's such a great line. So I've been waiting all morning for it.
It was amazing, and the BlackBerry Passport is here. Welcome, everybody. I'm Kevin Michalak, founder of CrackBerry and former editor-in-chief, joined by former managing editor Adam Zeiss.
I feel like we're doing a rogue podcast right now. It's like nobody that officially writes for CrackBerry knows about it.
Exactly. We all fired ourselves. So today is September 24th. It was BlackBerry Passport launch event day. Editor-in-chief Blaze, he's live on location there. The live stream just ended. We just posted our, embargoed BlackBerry Passport review. So if you haven't read that yet, go fire that up while you're watching us or listening to us. You can get to it by going to crackberry.com/BlackBerry-Passport-review. And it's an epic review, looks beautiful, it's long, it's detailed, and if you're looking at the BlackBerry Passport, it has everything you want to know and learn about it. At the same time, I've been rocking this bad boy for a couple weeks now, so I've got a lot to say on it, and I'm working on my review of it, my follow-up review to Blaze's review. But it's not done yet, and I don't want to put it up right away anyways. I still want to use it a little bit more. So I figured with lots of people asking me for my opinion, I'll kind of give you my verbal review today, and we'll follow up later with something in writing. But before we get to that, Adam, why don't we recap the news from today in terms of pricing, some of the features and specs, and we'll talk a couple minutes about the show itself.
Sure. So there was obviously the big Passport events today. It was in Toronto was the big one where John Chen was and Jeff Gadway, and they kind of anchored everything, and then I guess it was London and Dubai. But then we knew it was coming. Chen kind of leaked it a couple days ago that the pricing and availability and everything. But they got on stage and announced the BlackBerry Passport, which you can actually buy right now at shopblackberry.com, the unlocked one, for $599. And I think they have an exclusive with TELUS for the first few weeks as the only carrier partner for now, and then it's going to be available at other carriers before the end of the year. So if you've been looking to pick one up, you can get the unlocked one for $599. Quick recap of the features: it's got a 4.5-inch square touchscreen display, 13-megapixel camera with optical image stabilization, 32 gigs internal storage. It's got a giant battery. It's 3450 milliamps, I think, which is like 30 hours of battery life, BlackBerry claims. 1080p video recording, Gorilla Glass, and it supports all kinds of bands, so you can use it on pretty much anything, any carrier you want. And that's pretty much it. And then they threw in a bunch of other stuff. BlackBerry 10.3 is coming, and that's going to have the Amazon App Store in it. They have BlackBerry Assistant, which is the voice automated assistant, which is really cool because you can actually do all kinds of fun things, and it can actually get into your workspace, which Siri and Google can't really do at the moment. And then there's BlackBerry Blend, which is huge, which a lot of people have wanted, and it's kind of more than we asked for, where you can have your BBMs and your text message on your desktop, but you can also do all kinds of crazy file transfers and things like that, and it works pretty much anywhere and everywhere. It's not just over the same network, so there's a lot more on that we'll dive into. But it was basically a good announcement overall. It kind of keeps the ball rolling, and the Passport is something that BlackBerry users have been waiting for quite a while, and it's finally here, and we get all these other great features with it too. It's not just a device. We're getting a new OS and all. BlackBerry Assistant and BlackBerry Blend, so there's a lot of stuff to take in, which we'll have coverage for, for the next couple weeks. I'm sure we'll go over everything in detail, but very exciting day overall, I think, for BlackBerry fans.
Definitely, and a couple of cool things today. So they had 3 launch events. Notably, America was missing, and I think for obvious reasons that we don't need to get into. But in Toronto, in Dubai, in London, they had sort of localized events. And the Toronto one, they maintained a really Canadian flavor to it. So they brought out Wayne Gretzky on stage, who obviously is a national hero and a BlackBerry supporter, who spoke for a couple of minutes. They focused on the Canadian carriers there and those relationships, and every chance they had to make it feel Canadian, they did. They also really took this opportunity to assert this notion that BlackBerry is all about business and enterprise. And I mean, anybody who's been a long time BlackBerry user knows that these devices grew up in enterprise. That's where they came from. That's what BlackBerry was all about. It was always a business and security focused company. Always was, right? From the time it started, that's where it really focused. And that's where, honestly, I think the management team, the CEOs, everybody at BlackBerry wanted the focus to be. But due to market timing, due to carriers wanting to further develop and push their data networks, BlackBerry got pulled into the consumer market, and devices like the Pearl and the Curve, which never were built from the ground up to be consumer devices, started getting purchased by consumers, right? And from there, BlackBerry went through its meteoric rise in growth, huge success in the space, became #1 smartphone company in the world, still off of a device that was enterprise. And then other companies, Apple and Android, they got into smartphones really with ground-up offerings built for consumers. And BlackBerry was still competing with an enterprise-type device. We know how things have changed and evolved over the last couple of years. And BlackBerry ultimately got, I'd say, beat up pretty bad in the consumer space with smartphones. So now with the Passport, they're really kind of taking the step back, or not even a step back, but just they're going back to their roots. And they're saying, we're about business. And today's presentation was all focused on business features, productivity features, and how the Passport does that, focuses on that, and basically saying we're playing our own game here, and this is who we're about and what we're for. Very unapologetic. At the same time, they had no issue today comparing to other devices on the market. So to get across the point that why it is better for productivity, they were comparing the Passport to iPhones on stage and that kind of thing, and they were comparing BlackBerry Assistant to Siri and that kind of thing, right? So I think it was an interesting tactic from BlackBerry to notice and watch today, and overall I liked it. I think even if I wasn't a long-term BlackBerry person, but just a business person, I would be looking seriously at the device based on how it's been positioned, if nothing else. Agreed, Adam? Yes? No?
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a good little synopsis. So before we dive in, I know you're kind of dying to get into the details and talk about your
I want to talk about Passport.
But we threw on the Q&A feature, which we always forget to do, and we have a couple questions, so hopefully we can knock them out. And if you're tuning in live right now, you can pop a question into the Q&A, and we'll see if we can answer it. But our first one, who I know is dying to get it answered, is our good friend Phil Nickinson. Wants to know, does it bend? Have you tried bending your Passport yet?
I tried, and it's pretty tough. I don't think it'll bend that easy. I'm not even sure if you could blend this. Like if I tossed it in a blender, I think it would probably blow up the blender motor.
I feel like you'd need a really big blender to throw that guy in there in the first place.
The Passport is a beast of a phone, which we'll talk about more in a few seconds. Any other questions before we go into Kevin's definitive BlackBerry Passport review?
We have a couple. This one's kind of not Passport related, but we have to answer it all the time anyway. Karina wants to know if there's any news native Instagram for BlackBerry, which we still haven't seen, and I don't think we will see. It's not in the Amazon App Store still, so there's still no way to get it unless you sideload it. You have to use Snap or something like that. So it's still kind of a drag.
Yeah, I mean, I've been using iGran, and then I also put on the sideloaded, I guess, the Android version of Instagram, which, funny enough, the first time I installed it wasn't working, but then once I got some notifications, it started working, and it's okay. So there's definitely Instagram on BlackBerry. I mean, I use it on here.
You can still get it. You just need to sideload it.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's pretty much it. A lot of people are asking also if Verizon's going to get the Passport, which I'm not really sure. I think they will at some point, but I think Blaze would be the better answer for that.
Okay.
So that's it. So we're going to hand it over to Kevin, who really likes to rant anyway, and this time I'm going to give him permission. So we're going to get Kevin's verbal review of the Passport in 20 minutes or less.
Did you notice how I started really sort of formal and like this, and now I'm back to like, I just want to talk about.
Because now you just want to dive into it. So I'm gonna, for once, I'll let you do it without complaint.
Okay. Feel free to ask questions and direct me along the way too, and keep me on track. So, BlackBerry Passport. It is without a doubt a very polarizing device at first glance. You either like look at it and you love it, or you look at it and you go, what the F is this thing? I mean, I think all of us, myself, Blaze, Adam, when the first leaks of this thing came out, I mean, most of us thought it was a joke, right? A, the pictures weren't that great, but B, it's just such a different looking device. I mean, we're used to seeing these, touchscreen slabs today. And if it's a keyboard phone, we're used to seeing something that looks more like this, right? And I mean, if you take the Q10, which is the current BlackBerry keyboard flagship phone, and compare it to this guy, I mean, it's ginormous. It dwarfs the Q10 in size. I mean, the screen is just massive on the Passport, and it's just a really different looking device. Plus, with the squareness of it and everything else, it almost feels like a throwback to an old device. And often when I saw the photos in that, I kind of felt it was like, when was this thing made? In the 80s? Yet then when you see it in person, it is modern feeling. It's big, it's bold, the curves and the design actually stand out really nice. So, since I've had the phone, I've been traveling quite a bit, which is always the best way to test a device out. I always read these smartphone reviews where people sit in their office all day and that's how they do the review. And I'm sorry, but that's not a real review then. You're on Wi-Fi all day, you're in quiet conditions when you're testing the phone. I mean, you need to be out traveling to see how the battery life is. You need to be talking and using the speaker phone in loud environments, that kind of thing, to really see how it performs. And the Passport gets a lot of looks. So I was actually at a conference last week. It was like a digital publisher advertising sort of conference, and I was using the Passport everywhere. And this thing got so much attention. Now, number one, I was in America, and this doesn't look like a BlackBerry, right? If people saw a phone that looked like a regular BlackBerry, they would just assume I'm on an old BlackBerry user, and there's something wrong with me now. This is the sort of the American mentality that I'm still on one. But when they saw this, they knew it wasn't an old BlackBerry, but they saw the keyboard and they're like, what the hell is that? And this thing got so much attention, it was crazy. So if you're the kind of person who likes to have something that stands out in the crowd, that's going to get noticed and people are going to ask you about it, this is the device for you more than anything else on the market right now, and I think probably for the foreseeable future. If you head to my Instagram account, I posted a couple of photos where it's just the Passport compared to all the touchscreen devices out there, and it's amazing how it stands out compared to everything else. There it is compared to an iPhone 5S. Here it is.
Do you have a 6 Plus there you can compare it to?
Yeah, that what's in your hand right now? 6 Plus. And it stands out a lot. So visually, I still don't know. I definitely like it a lot more now visually than I did when I first saw it. I don't know if that's just me changing for it or it. I think honestly, just it stands out, and I like that about it. So that's part one. Visually, totally different device than you're going to see anywhere else, which is pretty cool. Picking the phone up the first time. Well, okay, let me just start with the conclusion. I don't know if anybody is going to immediately fall in love with the phone. I think it is a phone that you grow to love fairly quick. Now, even for me, who, I've spent thousands of hours on my BlackBerries, my keyboard phones and that, I would say it took me 3 days before I felt comfortable with the Passport. Now, keep in mind, I've been mainly using touchscreen phones the last year and a half. But so maybe if I was still using, say, a Q or 9900 coming into this, maybe a 2-day adjustment period. But there's definitely an adjustment period getting used to the phone. Part of it is the size of the device and the just the way it is. I mean, it's a wide phone to grasp. It's big. It's a little heavy, but it's not unwieldy. You can still manage it well, but it's definitely, I think, a two-handed phone for most people. I don't think it's a one-thumber unless you have really big hands. But also the keyboard, so with this, we're down from 4 rows of keys and the Alt key is gone, and we have 3 rows of keys, and then all the touchscreen, the last row of alternate characters and periods and everything comes up on the touchscreen as you're typing. And that's really different. We haven't seen that before. We've either seen physical keyboards or we've seen touchscreen keyboards, and now we have this hybrid keyboard where you're typing on buttons and then you're tapping on glass. And that's probably what takes the most getting used to. Now, learning about it before using it, I thought it was actually going to be harder to adapt to than it ultimately was. It's kind of like when you switch, say, from a PC to a Mac, where on a PC, all your menu items on apps kind of are tied to the app and they are with you wherever you go. But on a Mac, they're always docked to the very top of the screen, which is sometimes good, sometimes bad, depending on where you are. But it's consistent. So I think this is the thing here. Like, you have to kind of learn that, okay, whenever I want to do something that's not a letter, I'm going up. But in true BlackBerry form, almost without fail, it'll go up to tap on an alternate character, the one you want seems to be the one you instinctively go for. And it's kind of, I don't know, you don't realize it's happening, then you realize how intuitive and how much thought they probably went into placing characters in what orders as you reach up. So that takes the most time. But with that keyboard change, it's kind of weird because, you know, Adam, remember that article I wrote about why physical keyboards have a place in the world in 2014?
Sure.
So if you think about the benefits of a physical keyboard, you know, it's not so much typing speed. Like, I can type quicker on a touchscreen. I've said this for a long time. Physical keyboards are not about being faster than touchscreens. So you can type fast. Now, for some people, they may be faster on a physical keyboard, but I think I can type faster on a touchscreen these days in general. And then, so the benefits of a physical keyboard are really accuracy and ability to keep typing in adverse conditions. You know, so if I have a keyboard with all physical buttons, you know, I can be walking and typing. I can be in the back of a New York City taxi cab that's bumpy as hell, and I can still be typing with 100% dexterity. That's the benefit of having a keyboard with buttons. It's not just speed; it's that grip, and you know you're going to get it. The trouble with the hybrid approach here is you've split the difference. So you get some of the benefits of that dexterity, but now you're also tapping on glass. So I think it's not as pure of the benefits of the physical keyboard are not as pure on the Passport because of that reason. You're still kind of relying on glass typing. So, you know, in the presentation today, Jeff Gadway, who did an amazing job on his demo of the Passport, just amazing job. He did so well. You know, he said, I think 70% less typos happen on this kind of keyboard, which I don't disagree with those stats. They're definitely more accurate. But, you know, I think a Q10 or, say, the Classic would be your go-to for uncompromised accuracy compared to the Passport. The other thing is the efficiency of the keyboard. So I've written a lot about this over the years, where when it comes to a physical keyboard, the best experience you can have is a keyboard that's big enough to allow you to hit the letters without being cramped, without kind of mistyping, but not having to move your thumb any further than necessary to reach a letter. So, you know, if you think back to some of the smartphones that used to have landscape keyboards that went all the way across the bottom, I've always hated those because, you know, you're moving your thumb so far for every letter that you're just wasting a bunch of time with every single keystroke. And so what you want is like a perfect keyboard that's the exact right width, where it's not too narrow, not too wide. So some keyboards, like let's say, I remember the Palm Pre, for example. That was a fairly narrow keyboard. I had trouble on that compared to something like the Bold 9000s and that at the time. But the Passport has a really wide keyboard. So I find it that, you know, when I'm typing on it, I'm moving my thumbs further than that natural comfort zone, which I'd say probably the Q10 has. But this phone isn't really just about the keyboard. So I've kind of said, look, I think for the keyboard, it's maybe not as optimal speed-wise and accuracy-wise as your more traditional BlackBerry. The reason it's wide, obviously, is because you have this huge-ass display above it, which is really nice. And they spent a lot of time during their presentation today making the point that wide is good, you want to work wide, that you fit way more content on the screen with a wide screen versus, you know, a tall, narrow type of form factor. And they showed some demos, and it's absolutely true. I mean, I really do find consuming content on the Passport to be awesome. Reading emails, there's so much more that fits in there. Web pages, etc. I forget the exact percentage if it's you see 30 or 40% more characters on a screen. But it's absolutely great. So if you are a person who, you know, again, receives a lot of communication in a day, you want to stay on top of it, you're going to find, you know, on one screen, without having to scroll, you can get through the content really well. So the screen is where it's at, but the keyboard, before I move on, because I kind of was lukewarm on it, it's magical with the way it's capacitive and takes touch gestures. And after using the phone for a while, I'm still blown away that this even works as a feature. So I'm just going to pull up an empty email here to myself.
Crazy things for me when I played with it, I mean, was just, it's even though it's there, it's hard to grasp the concept that you can actually touch on the keyboard and scroll and things like that.
Yeah, the fact that I can like swipe words back, by swiping on the physical buttons, mind blowing. And I often find when I'm say in the web browser in the CrackBerry 10 app, I will scroll through the stories. Let me just open the CB10 app by swiping on the trackpad, which is awesome. So I think that swipe gesture is really cool, really magical, and again, last week when I was showing off the phone to strangers who are asking like, what is this thing? As soon as you show them that you can swipe on the keyboard and do gestures on it, they're just kind of blown away because it's not really something we've ever seen before. So here I'm looking at our live chat. Predictive swipe on the keyboard will eliminate need to move your thumbs all around too far. Yeah, it's true. So that's the other thing. If you think about the BlackBerry 10 Touch keyboard, you get suggestions for words by the letters you're at, and you can swipe them up or tap on top. So with this one, you get your auto-suggested words, on this line above your alternate characters, and you can swipe up on the keyboard to put those into the text field. It works really well. The only thing is I find because I'm typically more so looking at the characters, I'm not always looking at the suggestions still. So I think that's one of those things that as you use the phone more, you'll continually improve and get better with it. One of the big things though too in terms of that feel with such a big phone, it is different in terms of feeling compared to your traditional BlackBerry.
Michelle actually has a question here which you're probably going to cover in a second, but just where the keyboard's placed and how small it is. Is it top heavy when you're holding it and when you're typing, and how does it feel, compared to other BlackBerries?
So I find it's okay when I'm standing like this or sitting like this, and it's kind of funny, there's that BlackBerry logo on the back, and I find my fingers just sort of naturally rest against it, and it's okay. And I don't mind. I think everybody, like Blaze and myself both, it took a little bit to get used to the space bar. The space bar is fairly small. It's in the middle, and it's weird how all the other characters have backlighting. You can even see it here, but the space bar doesn't. So if you're like at night, you don't see the space bar because it's black everywhere. You just see there's nothing there, and you're like, okay, that's where the space bar is. I really wish they stuck a little line on it. But what I'd say is with such a short space bar, I think in the beginning, if you end up pushing on the edges, you might not get a really crisp space bar tap. So you kind of get used to pushing more in the middle of the button, which again, you're moving in either direction, your thumb a little bit further to center to get that nice definite tap or press. But you get used to it fairly quick. And I think the other thing is, you do have to adapt to how the Passport wants to be held. And that's kind of what I was going to say now is one of the hallmarks of BlackBerry going back to this phone, or to this phone, or to everyone in between, or this phone, has always been how good they frickin' feel in your hand. No phone on the market compared to BlackBerry over the years has ever felt as good to me when you pick it up. They always just feel just right. From the texture to the weight, the way it just falls in your hand, and you want to hold it all day. That's always been a hallmark of BlackBerry design, right? And the Passport is kind of not that. It's not an immediately comfortable phone, partially due to the width and the size. It's just a big device. But, it's not uncommon. This is not a comfortable phone to hold either. The 6 Plus is big. You get into these big phone territory, and it's just not going to fit your hands as comfortably unless you have, I guess, maybe huge hands or something. But overall, I still like the feel of it. It has that soft touch on the back, which is nice. I have a case for it too, this guy, which I like a lot. It's very thin, and you can just slap it, slide it in the bottom, and it gives you nice texture on the back. And what's nice is it's just raised very slightly in the corners here, because one of my favorite features on 10.3 in the Passport is, if you put it face down, it'll silence notifications, kind of go into a low power standby mode, which is great. And you have some options there you can play with. And then when so you end up wanting to use that quite a lot, right? If you're at dinner, there's meetings, I just flip it over. And then I love that if you pick it up off a flat surface, it automatically turns the display on, which is clever. And I think I'm jumping around a lot, but that's one of the things I've grown to love very quickly about the Passport, is it honestly feels like a return to the first BlackBerry I ever had. Like when I first got this phone, I was used to using feature phones, flip phones, that kind of thing. So using this was a really different experience at first. It was strange to use this kind of phone. And it took a while to get used to it. It wasn't an overnight thing. And now what's kind of happening is the same thing all over again, except 7 years later, 8 years later for me, where now I'm used to using touchscreen devices, these kinds of things, and then all of a sudden I pick up this, and it's very different. The look of it, everything is kind of different. But I'm starting to discover all these little features and thoughts that make me like it a lot. Including the widescreen. And this is my favorite thing. So in the inbox, they've added these instant actions, and it's probably not going to come through on the video here well, but it's an optional thing you can sort of tap on. But I wrote an editorial a while ago, this year, a few months back, complaining about it taking too long to delete emails or archive emails in the inbox. If I use iOS or Android, if I'm going through my emails, I can swipe left, and automatically archive an email or get more options and take action. Whereas on BlackBerry, it's like tap, press, hold, menu slides out, go to the bottom of the screen, tap, delete. Are you sure you want to delete? Yes, although you can turn off the delete confirmations. And I'm like, man, I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is pick up my phone, and I just triage my inbox. And on BlackBerry 10 to date, it's always driven me nuts. I just don't do it until I get to a computer. But with the Passport, they totally solved that. So there's so much real estate on the screen. I can basically have, they made little delete icons beside every letter of or every line of the inbox, every message. So I can just go through and go tap, 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 and delete every email I want. Or if you don't have that showing all the time, even after I read an email and come back to my main inbox, those icons show up for a few seconds before they fade away. So if you want to take an instant action, you can without having to gesture or pull up a menu. And that is the kind of thinking that made me fall in love with BlackBerry to begin with years ago, was little details like that really helped me get through the day, and they just work without you necessarily having to think about it. So, between the new experiences of a widescreen, different feeling type of phone, and some of these little features that I just, I'm like, oh, that's so good, so brilliant. Honestly, this feels like this to me, and I keep thinking about this all the time because, again, it was sort of the first type of BlackBerry I ever used. It was very different to what I was using before, and once I started using it, it's really weird to use something else. And I went back to the Q10 now after using the Passport, and the Q10 felt so strange. You're like, oh, the screen's so tiny. Oh, why can't I do this? So I honestly think if you are a BlackBerry user, a BlackBerry fan, you like physical keyboards, you're probably going to go for the Passport as your device, even over the Classic, especially if you're a little bit more into technology and you want to have that latest and greatest thing. I mean, it stands out, it's cool, and the screen is huge. I think the Classic is going to be really good for people who, they just want that BlackBerry experience. They want a physical keyboard, they want something smooth and fast, and the Classic is definitely going to be the best of the traditional BlackBerry experience, let's call it. But this is kind of a new BlackBerry experience that's, I don't know, that you want to try, and I think a lot of people will grow to like once they use it. But I'm going to be really clear, you have to give it some time. And I think that's one of my fears with the device, maybe doing ultimately well with sales as it could, is, it's a risky thing. Like Blaze did his review, he put a lot of time into it. We talked back and forth as he was doing it, and I had my Passport, and we both had the same thing where the first day or two I'm like, I don't know, man, I just don't know if I'm gonna like this phone because it feels different. You're changing the way I'm typing. Instead of just picking up the phone and being able to use it, it's like I picked up something a little alien and I have to get used to it. And people are so impatient these days. They're so ADD, that change it can be really hard. But committed to it, worked through those first couple of days, and then it's like, oh, I really like it. And it's my daily driver. I pick up all the toys. Everybody knows I'm carrying. I have all the phones around me. And what's also great is with 10.3, Amazon App Store preloaded, I'm getting all the apps that I need and want, so I can use this phone and I have no desire or feel the need to pick up something else, which hasn't been the case for a long time, where I always kind of felt like, I love my BlackBerry, but I felt like I also had to have another phone with me so I wasn't going to miss out on the apps I wanted or anything else. And now I'm like, you know what, I can use this. And even picking up that iPhone, I picked up an iPhone 6 Plus on launch day there. I've barely used the thing because I've had no desire to. I've been into the Passport, and the Passport is just, I don't know, it's got that old school feeling I used to get from BlackBerry, and I like that it's the phone that less people are going to have. So been really liking that. Somebody asked in the comments, what's my daily driver? I mean, it's definitely this. I'm going to spend a little time going back and forth with the other devices and try that Plus out for a bit, but I can totally have no issue with this.
Fit in your pocket.
Good question. So it's pocketable. It's definitely pocketable, but I would say it's better in the back pocket than the front pocket. And historically, I've been carrying my phones in the front pocket, but that's a little too much skin for a podcast here. It does fit the pocket okay though. Suit pocket it'll fit into, just fit in nicely. Front pocket, it fits also. It's a little wide-ish, though. It's not too thick, but if you put a case on, it is thickish. Like, I think for pocketability, thickness is an important part, and this is just kind of on the edge of it. So, again, it's going to depend who you are, but I'd say it is it's pocketable enough. But I've been finding when I'm out of the house, I've been carrying it in my back pocket, and which I haven't been doing that with smartphones lately. So, a couple times I found myself, about to sit down on it and like, oh, it's in my pocket. Then I stop and pull it out.
Quite a bit actually, because I carry more than one phone, and I always find myself sticking them together and throwing them in my back pocket. But then when I go to get in my car, I go to sit down someplace, I'm always worried that I'm going to sit on them and crush them. So
yeah, well, and they're pretty. It's pretty tough. I don't think it would break if you sat on it, but better to remember to pull it out. Other hardware features. So the screen itself really brilliant. No complaints, great display. Camera, really good. I've been taking some great photos with it. Now, low light, they mentioned today that the camera was really optimized for low light, and I took some low light photos, and I felt they were okay. I didn't think they were, mind-blowing, but, he showed off a couple, those were more like indoor low light ones. In the presentation today, they showed off that nighttime shot of Toronto, and it looked like a great photo. So I want to spend more time on the camera before I'm give it a definitive. It's amazing, but I think it's definitely the best camera on a BlackBerry ever. Blaze has been raving about it also. It's fast. Oh, and this is where, again, BlackBerry is finally coming back to their roots of productivity. So one of the things I hated on the camera app to date is just how many taps you have to do to pull up things. Like switching the camera direction's a pain in the ass, or how many people are going to use FaceTime if you always have to go into a menu to pull it on before you activate it. And now a lot of this stuff is automatic. So when you're taking a photo, it will automatically, if it sees faces, it'll give you a little drop down saying, do you want to use FaceTime? And you can tap it right there. It's presented to you. FaceTime, click, click, works seamlessly, brilliant. Or if you hit the record button, it automatically starts recording video. So, you're in the camera mode taking a picture, but then let's say you want to hit a record button. With everything else, you always have to switch to recording mode, then hit record. Here, you just hit that button, it starts recording. So it's about saving you taps wherever it can. But of course, the Passport is a little bit, and BB10 in general, it's a little bit of both of those things. Like some things are saving you time, but if you want to install an app out of the Amazon App Store, it's like, okay, download, install, yes, blah, 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 install again, and you're doing more taps just by the nature of installing an Android app. So there's certain things I want them to keep working on to make it even more seamless, but overall, pretty darn happy with it. Battery life has been great. Again, traveling is always the true test for battery life, and I was getting through full days, and I mean, when you have a new phone like this, you play with it a lot more than you normally would. So not yet have I ever had it die before the end of the day. And I mean, last week when I was data roaming, waking up at 6 a.m., going to bed at 1 a.m., I still had battery life, and I was using that phone a lot through the day. So to me, no concerns there. I think it's got a great battery life. Um, what else do you want to know, Adam? I'm happy on the app ecosystem and where it's at. But I
I
think
think we've
that's,
covered quite a bit of it.
yeah, it's really, I mean, for me too, like side loading Android apps is always that other option. So for me, there's certain work apps that we use, like Trello for organizing stuff, or we use Slack Messenger, and those weren't in the Amazon App Store, but we grabbed them and they work perfectly, right? Maybe you don't get the same push notifications, but I kind of hate all that stuff anyways, getting bombarded. So the apps are working the way I need to. I think he means time shift camera. What did I call it? Face shift or something? FaceTime on BlackBerry. Oh, sorry, I'm just like out of time shift camera. Thank you, chat room, for correcting my faux pas. What was I saying? Blah 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 blah.
Your work apps.
Oh yeah, no. So the apps I really need are there. Um, you know, so the app gap for me is closed. That's going to vary a little bit by person, but definitely, I think people will use this phone and can use it probably without having the need for a second device at all. Even though today, they kind of said, and it's come up a few times, where, BlackBerry's mission now isn't necessarily to be the only phone in your pocket. It's just to be the phone in your pocket if you care about business and security, knowing that you might also own an iPad or a different tablet or an iPod or something like that, or maybe even an iPhone and a BlackBerry. So all good. BlackBerry Blend they went through today. I haven't spent too much time on it yet because I had an earlier, unreleased version which was acting up on my Mac. But again, Blaze has been using it and loves it a lot. So we'll be doing another podcast once Blaze and Simon are back to follow up this one. Other thoughts? I think that covers a lot of it. I mean, I want to be clear that you're going to have to give it a chance when you get used to it, but this isn't a BlackBerry storm, right? I think that was one of my fears when I started to use it was, oh my goodness,
Thank God for that.
You're changing the way I need to type. This is crazy. You're trying something new, but is different actually better? And in this case, it is something different. For the typing experience, is it better or not? Again, I've been typing pretty well on touchscreens. I've been typing pretty good on the old style BlackBerry keyboards. For me, I don't know if I needed another innovation in typing, but I get that the goal here, the first goal here was to give you a huge ass square display, and after that they want to build a keyboard that works great with it, and I think they've done quite well. A Passport that also has an Alt key and a fourth row of letters, I don't know, maybe it would be okay. It might even help with some of the balance things that somebody asked about, where again, with balance of the phone, it could be considered top heavy. The only place I've noticed it an issue is lying in bed like this, because when you're in bed on your back looking up at the ceiling and the keyboard's so low, yeah, it's going to want to fall on your head. So I would definitely say the balance point is better when you're upright than when you're lying back. I think, who's it for? BlackBerry didn't set out here to build a device that's going to, make it the mainstream #1 phone. They built a really polarizing device that people are going to love or people are going to hate, both visually when they use it, etc. I was reading some of the other reviews that have gone up today already, just before we started to record this show. I'd say the reviews are kind of what I expected. I'm pretty good at gauging how others are going to react, and I think most people are giving it, yes, there's some innovation, yes, it's big, but, for some of the benefits you're getting, it's also working against you. And I think it's going to vary a little bit person by person on that, because now that I'm over this hump, I really like the Passport, but there was an initial hump to get through. And like I said, it's not a storm, which to this day, I never got used to it. And, some people did and still talk about how much they love their storm, but, despite my trying, I just never was one of those people. So I think they're onto something here. I think, they're going to have to make sure, and people are going to have to go into buying their Passport knowing what they're getting into a little bit. But it's a complete package right now, and it's working, I don't know, really well. I like it.
I think about the hump. I mean, you can say that about any phone, like especially the most recent thing. You look at iPhone 6 Plus and how many people are buying that, because they've been iPhone users for life and they've had this little tiny phone, and now they're getting this giant phone and they're saying, "Holy crap, this is the biggest phone ever!" And I don't know if I'm gonna like it, But I think
Yeah.
2-3 weeks from now they're gonna realize, either they totally do or they totally don't. So we'll get to that point. But it's the same kind of thing with the Passport because it's bigger phone than a lot of the people have had before. So there's the initial kind of regret period where, should I have gotten this? Am I going to like it? I don't know if I like it. I do like it. I'm not sure if I like it. So I think that goes for anything. But
I think that's a really valid point and a good analogy, and and honestly, it is the Apple BlackBerry analogy here, because if you pick up an iPhone 6, it still feels like an iPhone, very much so. You don't feel like you've switched into something else. Just like the BlackBerry Classic is going to feel like the BlackBerries you've known and used all along. You make that jump to something bigger, the iPhone 6 Plus does not feel like an iPhone anymore. Like it just doesn't. It's like at that point they needed to not just continue making the design bigger. To me, it feels like just something weird to get used to, not an iPhone. And the Passport is similar, right? It doesn't feel like a BlackBerry that you've ever used before, but I think you can get used to it. And though the difference here is they just didn't take. I think what BlackBerry did different, actually, compared to, say, Apple and the iPhone 6 Plus is, BlackBerry didn't just take this and stretch it out bigger, which is essentially what they did going from iPhone 6 to 6 Plus. BlackBerry actually said, okay, if we go bigger, what else has to change? And that's where they said, okay, we're going to kill a row on the keyboard. We're going to do some different things here. So I think they thought that through quite well. But it'll be really interesting to see. I do think, though, it's going to get some attention from people, and I hope it does well in the markets they enter. And I think, one thing we've seen with John Chen is he's making decisions where they're not going to lose money in whatever they do. So I don't know how many of these they have to sell in a year to make it, worth all the effort and everything else. But I'm sure they wouldn't have done it unless they believed they could hit that market. And it's a bit of a gamble, but it's definitely a BlackBerry that you're gonna be proud to bust out and use, and it's funny because, again, going to the U.S. traveling with a BlackBerry in your pocket for the last 2 years, it's been one of those things where it almost causes a conversation like, oh, you still use a BlackBerry? I mean, it's happened to me hundreds of times, not from people who know I'm associated with BlackBerry, just when I do it, it's like, oh, people randomly feel this need to call you out on your BlackBerry. And with the Passport, it's like the opposite. It's like, what the hell is that thing? And the comments have varied a lot from, that's ridiculous to, oh my God, that's so hot, I want one right now. And that's kind of great. The same things have sort of happened when I've used the Porsche design phones out in the in public, and people it catches their eye and they're just like, what the hell is that thing? So I always enjoy that. It's one of those things. If you can have fun with tech, have fun with tech. And I think Passport's fun with tech, and it's also productive. So I've been enjoying it a lot. The end? The end. Go buy a Passport.
Would you say that it's your passport to adventure?
I would say it was my passport to adventure. Yeah, it's my passport to adventure. I was going to say my adventure to a passport.
Yeah, just stick with my line and call it a day.
Yeah. Processor too, I know some people complain like, oh, they could have put a faster, better processor in it, but I don't know. I mean, it's been super fast from my perspective. I mean, I guess faster is always better, but I haven't had any real issues, as I multitask and open more apps, and things seem to be pretty lickety split on it. What else? I want it in white. Mine's black. I like a white matching one for summer.
So your suggestion to BlackBerry fans, should they buy a Passport or should they wait to see the Classic?
Okay, so that's a very good question. I think it depends. If you're a BlackBerry user because there's this feeling of comfort, you've used it for years, you're fast on the keyboard, you love that physical keyboard, maybe you're still using it in the car even though you really shouldn't be, so I'm not even going to say that. I think the Classic is going to be the best experience of that traditional BlackBerry you've known and loved through the years. It really is. But if you want something that is really running toe-to-toe with the biggest and newest phones on the market today, in terms of appearance and just everything, um, you're okay with adapting to change a little bit, then I think the Passport is the one for you. And I think when you look through the full, gamut of BlackBerry devices, even the naming is kind of good, right? Like Passport versus Classic. Classic is more that classic experience. Passport is your adventure for fun.
Passport to adventure.
Your passport to adventure. Oh my God, I messed it up. So I don't know. It's tricky. And the hard thing is, if I say go to a store and try to hold one, I don't think you can just say, oh, I don't like the Passport, or I like the Passport. Like, you could say it, but I don't think it's going to mean anything until you spend a day or two using it. And I think that's hard, right? That's why I think this isn't a device that is going to attract a whole bunch of BlackBerry people back to BlackBerry and that kind of thing who've never used a BlackBerry before. Because if you picked it up and you start to use it, between learning BB10 with all the gestures there and the keyboard, I mean, we're talking a lot of change from somebody who's been maybe using an iPhone or a whatever Android phone the past couple of years. So to me, they're sort of saying, like, if you've been a BlackBerry user ever before, you have warm fuzzy feelings for BlackBerry, which is good. You want to come back and give it a try, or you've been on BlackBerry and you've been waiting for them to do something new and different. This is the phone for you, right? Like, absolutely. If you're, just looking for a better BlackBerry because you've always had a BlackBerry and you want to keep, you want something that's better but the same, that'll be the Classic. And I think the Classic, a lot of people will love putting the trackpad on it. You maintain that one thumb easy use. And I think maybe that's it too. The Classic is going to be more of that one-handed phone. But to me, this is very much a two-handed phone. Like, I can't really, I can hold it to my ear to talk on it, obviously, with one hand. But after that, I'm just going down and two-thumbing it, which is okay. I mean, that's how I used to use these phones too. I never used to use this phone too much with one hand. I would always be typing and back like this. So we shall see. Woo! So excited.
We're gonna pack it up. Oh, my daughter's crying because you're talking too much.
Okay. Let's just check quickly through the chat. Yeah, people are asking about when's 10.3 going to push out. I don't know, but I really hope soon, because I think people are going to really like 10.3. I really wish, honestly, I really freaking wish, in retrospect, like the Z10 would have launched with 10.3, because it feels a lot more polished now. I mean, the icons, we should talk about that, like, finally.
10.2 as well, we said, because we even did a review of 10.2.1 or whatever it was, and we said, this is what the Z10 should have launched with.
Exactly, and I say that again now. Like, the icons are looking better. They got rid of the blockiness. Details in the hub, like just the nice little compose button that pops out above and all the stuff. It's coming together really nicely. You have some of the things like the optional dark themes in certain apps. Like, I don't know. It is good. Oh, people are asking who won the BlackBerry Passport. We will be announcing that today. Michelle is in charge of that, and she's probably doing the final tally and random pick of the winners. So that'll be announced as soon as we know. Possibly we'll do another contest soon, but we got to decide when and how. I think we should do something fun like I don't know.
Adventure contest?
Yeah, the Passport to Adventure contest.
I'm not going to leave it alone. Everything's Passport to Adventure today.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm falling apart now, but
pack it in. I mean, we have Simon and Blaze who will be back in action with plenty more.
Yeah. We'll do another one of these. I just wanted to get my stuff out there quickly because people are asking, and I'm really sad because this is the first BlackBerry launch event I've missed since 2007. But we're having our annual Mobile Nations Tech Summit this week in Winnipeg, and I'm hosting it. So I can't actually. I got people calling me on my Passport right now. Hey, it's Vinny, the one we've put on CrackBerry before. Hang on.
Amazing.
Vinny, what's up? What's up? I'm in town, but I'm recording a podcast right now. They just announced a new BlackBerry today, so I got to jump off. Okay. Done deal. Okay, sounds good. We'll see you then. Okay. Thank you. Bye. Wow, that's funny. So that's Vinny, the one.
Winner is already posted, by the way.
Oh, who's the winner?
I don't know. I didn't
Qualakin.
actually read the post yet. Oh, there you go.
Congratulations to Chief Qualacon.
20 minutes ago, the post went live. So if you haven't checked in the last half hour, you should check now. But
We're
congrats.
so efficient.
We are most days. Now that we don't technically write for CrackBerry anymore, we're getting more things done today than ever before.
Things done. Yeah. So sorry.
Amazing.
So what I was saying was we have the tech team all here this week, so I couldn't cancel or change things because we were booked on this months ago before the launch event got announced. But Blaze is there, so we'll get back together again when he's back, and hopefully we'll do these podcasts a little bit more often because people have been complaining Blaze hasn't been doing enough podcasting. But everybody's also been happy that Kevin's not blogging too much because he's evil. So.
And Simon are in Toronto, so I'm sure they have demos and things like that for more. We have a couple things up on Blend and Assistant and everything, but in the coming weeks we'll have more on that. You can actually, people were asking if Blend was out, but I'm pretty sure in that one blog post the link was there to go download it, so you can actually get that right now. And 10.3 is coming soon-ish, hopefully.
Cool.
So
all right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. BlackBerry Passport. Read our CrackBerry review at crackberry.com/blackberry-passport-review. Keep it locked to the blogs. We'll be, doing our thing on it, or Blaze and the team will be doing their things on it, all the helps and how-tos and tips and tricks and things you must know and learn, giving you a look at some of the features. And it's going to be a fun device. We've waited almost a year for a new flagship BlackBerry. Our Z30 review was in October last year, so it's been a while. And I think that this is a good phone because I think it's it has a long shelf life to it. I mean, this is a fairly, I don't even want to say uncompromising BlackBerry because it's not only not compromising on anything, it's kind of gone above and beyond what we've ever seen in a keyboard phone ever. So there's a lot to play with in it, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun for CrackBerry folks for a long time. That's it. Peace out. Thanks for tuning in.
See ya.
Appreciate it.